Good morning. Still giving spooky October its best chance in life. I picked up Stephen King yet again, as the thumbnail will have suggested to you. I went like this, as I have before. You can call it the Stephen King page roulette, if you like. And I ended up on The Moving Finger. So, The Moving Finger is the dud in this book for me. I only finished it because I wanted to review it, and while I'm perfectly happy to review a DNF novel, I don't feel it's right to DNF a short story and still review it. It doesn't really make sense. I did not like The Moving Finger at all. It starts with an interesting premise. So we've got this guy who's sitting in his house. His wife has gone to pick up some ice cream. It's some small American apartment type scenario. Just looking for the actual story. And he hears a tap, tap, tapping. Can you hear that? I'm not sure. Tap, 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 tap. In the bathroom. He picks up the dustpan, though I think Stephen King calls it something else, in the broom, and goes into the bathroom, assuming it's going to be a vermin of some kind, mouse or rat. It isn't. It's this finger extending itself out from the drain, going tap, 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 tap around the basin. Great premise. I actually really like the idea. The TV show is the shtick for this one. So Howard Mittler is his name, and the apartment is in Queens, which would be in New York. And he's watching a show called Jeopardy. Now, I've never heard of Jeopardy, or at least I've never watched any. Maybe I've read about it somewhere, but it just kind of went whoosh. Some game show, and you've got a game show host. And I think Stephen King was very good at finding a shtick and working it, like the Smokers Club in the story I reviewed a time or two ago. The shtick here is Jeopardy. And I think the shtick in this story relies very heavily on the reader knowing what Jeopardy is, knowing who the host of this show is, and how it works. I don't. So that fell a bit flat. And there was nothing to really resurrect this story. The finger coming out of the drain going tap, 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 tap is a great notion, but King didn't do anything with it. Howard Mittler finds it, then he basically screams and runs, and then he finds himself for the next, I don't know, maybe up to 10 pages, whining about it inside his head, trying to decide if he's crazy or not. Oh, yawn. Not another, am I crazy? I must be crazy, for pages and pages. This is one of the reasons, I suspect, why I moved so thoroughly away from horror over time. It's like, I don't really care if you're crazy or not. Okay, dude? Just give me a decent story. Anyhow, after a whole lot of this bemoaning his brain, his wife comes home and goes to the bathroom. She doesn't see it. So we've got, I think, a day or two of Howard Mittler doing entertaining things like peeing in the back alley because he won't go into the bathroom. I don't know, whatever. Maybe this appeals to someone. I thought it was lame as. I wouldn't, like I said, I would never have finished it. Eventually, I read through the middle of it to come to the ending. At the ending, there's a scene that was actually mildly interesting. And it just felt like, at this point, Stephen King really didn't know where he was going with this. He had a good shtick. He had the beginning in mind, and the beginning worked. He had an ending in mind, and the end battle between Howard Mittler and the finger actually had moments of not pure agony. But then the actual ending finally reverts to the show. So the game show is obviously his focus in this, and that fell flat. So this deserves negative stars for me. I I really hope I remember this review. I hope I do. And that I never, ever try to read the story again. It was agonizingly boring. I actually found myself wanting to go into my bathroom and scrub the grouting because it would be more enjoyable than listening to this. Anyway, so The Moving Finger was a dud. Next, a couple of days later, I think it was, or maybe the next day, I went on to Umney's Last Case. And, well, after the finger business, I had almost considered giving up on this book. I'm glad I went back to Umney's Last Case. I think I picked that one off the list. And it's right at the back. And that was brilliant. I loved it. So in this one, there's certain similarities in several of the Stephen Kings that I've read in this book so far. There's a similarity of structure, main character, attitude between main character and reader. But in this one, we start off with a private eye, a Raymond Chandler type pastiche. He wakes up into his perfect world of LA, which is this perfect day. The sun's just right. Everything's just beautiful. And then he starts realizing that small things aren't right. He can't hear his neighbors overhead, and he can't hear their corgi either. As he walks to work, the paper boy not only says that his mother's won a lottery and he's not going to be back, but indicates that he was never friends with Umney, as Umney had always believed. Things are going wrong. Shops that he loves are closing. People he wants to interact with are unhealthy. They're dying. Things are going wrong. And in this early part of the book, you've got this constant refrain of things aren't meant to change. I want this boy to always be on that corner, this blind boy always to be on that corner, selling me my newspaper on my way to the office. I want my office to always be the same. I don't want the hallway painted. Everything should stay the same. And all of this early part is well written, and it's got just the right level of eeriness that you are carried along and fascinated by the narrative. I will say that in both of these two stories, Stephen King exhibits some of his less literary characteristics. Now, Stephen King's got some books that are exceptionally well written, but many of them are workman and he treated writing like a job, which is something you can appreciate. Some of them are beautifully written, but most of them are workman-like written. And Umney's Last Case is workman-like written, but the narrative is good enough and tight enough and well edited enough, unlike The Moving Finger, to be very enjoyable. So by the time he reaches his office, he's totally rattled. He finds out that his receptionist, Candy Kane, has ditched her equipment in the wastebasket, left him a note saying that she never liked him and she's sick of his lame jokes about her name, and she's leaving, and she signs it not Candy. She signs it with Raylene, I think it is. And that's when we get this feeling that maybe that everything that Umney had thought was so isn't so, and there's something very, very strange happening. And there is. And it's very enjoyable in every part. Should I spoiler this? Can you spoiler this? Now, Umney's Last Case, I read up on it a bit, and apparently this copy of Dreams and Nightmares from 1993 is its first publication. And, yeah, 1993, definitely first publication in this novel. Maybe some people haven't read this one yet. I do believe both of these stories would have been televised. Anyhow, whatever. Minor spoiler. Umney's sitting in his office, feeling with his head on the desk, feeling terrible. He gets a knock, and he's terrified of whoever's coming into the room. The person comes into the room, he won't look. And there's this sense of knowing the person's voice, knowing the smell, even though he's sure he's never smelt it before. And it turns out that Umney is actually a fictional detective that's been written by his visitor, his last case, who comes in smelling of an aftershave that hasn't been created yet, wearing sneakers from a brand that hasn't been created yet. He's come from the future. He's written himself into his own story, and his aim and goal is to take over Umni's life, and he doesn't much care what happens to Umni after he does that. So, not going to spoil the end entirely in case you haven't read it. I thoroughly recommend it. The ending is actually really good. Very satisfying, enjoyable, well written, and it leaves you with a bit of a quirk in your head. So both of them have been televised, like I said. I believe that the televised version of The Moving Finger was just as terrible as the reading version of The Moving Finger, because most of it happens inside Howard Mittler's head, and Howard Mittler's head is an agonizingly boring and unappealing place. Thank you very much for watching these two short story reviews from Stephen King's Nightmare and Nightmares and Dreamscapes. I'm not even halfway through them. I don't think I will finish them by the end of October, but go spooky October, getting me to read more of them. Have a great day. Read good books or short stories.